The freezing wind cut through Marcus like 1,000 knives as he stumbled through the blinding snowstorm. His horse had thrown him miles back, spooked by a rattlesnake hidden beneath the rocks. Now, with darkness falling fast and the temperature dropping like a stone, every step felt like his last. His fingers had gone numb an hour ago. His boots were soaked through. Ice crystals formed in his beard with each labored breath. The Colorado mountains showed no mercy to the foolish, and Marcus knew he'd been exactly that. Foolish to think he could cross the pass before the storm hit. Blood from a gash on his forehead had frozen to his cheek. His leather coat, once his pride, now felt like paper against the brutal cold. Each gust of wind threatened to knock him off his feet. He'd lost feeling in his toes completely. This was how men died in the mountains, slowly, painfully, alone. Through the curtain of white, he spotted something dark against the mountain face. A cave. Hope surged through his chest as he forced his legs to move faster, nearly collapsing as he half crawled, half fell into the opening. The relief was instant. The howling wind became muffled. But then Marcus froze. Not from the cold this time. A woman sat by a small fire deeper in the cave. An Apache woman, her dark eyes reflecting the flames as they studied him with the wariness of a cornered wolf. Her long black hair was braided intricately, and despite the rough conditions, she carried herself with unmistakable dignity. Her hand rested near a knife at her belt. "I mean no harm," Marcus managed through chattering teeth, raising his trembling hands. "Just seeking shelter from the storm." She said nothing for a long moment, those calculating eyes taking in his condition, the ice in his hair, the blue tinge to his lips, the way he swayed even while sitting, the blood on his face. Her expression remained carefully neutral, but he saw her assessment. He was no threat, not in this condition. Finally, she spoke in surprisingly clear English, her voice firm and steady. "You'll be dead by morning if you stay there by the entrance." Marcus tried to respond, but another violent shiver cut off his words. His teeth clattered so hard he thought they might shatter. The woman's expression remained unreadable as she studied him. "There's only one blanket, one bedroll." She paused, and something flickered in her eyes. Not kindness exactly, but pragmatic calculation. "We share the bed, or you freeze to death. Your choice, cowboy." Marcus felt heat rush to his frozen face despite the cold. His mother had raised him to be a gentleman. "Ma'am, I couldn't possibly." "Then die." She turned back to the fire with apparent disinterest. "I won't watch." Don't forget to subscribe and let us know where you're watching from. It really makes our day. Minutes passed like hours. Marcus felt consciousness slipping away at the edges. His pride warred with his survival instinct, and pride was losing badly. The storm outside roared louder, as if nature itself was mocking his hesitation. His vision started to blur. His body was shutting down. "All right," he whispered, the word barely audible. The woman nodded once, a curt gesture, and gestured to the bedroll she'd laid out near the fire. Marcus crawled over on hands and knees, his body screaming with each movement. His legs felt like lead. His arms shook with the effort. She'd already settled on one side, her back to the cave wall, leaving him the outer edge. Smart positioning. She could defend herself if needed, and he'd block the cold air from the entrance. He lay down stiffly, trying to maintain some semblance of respectful distance. But she pulled the thick buffalo hide over them both with practiced efficiency. "Back to back," she commanded. "Body heat will keep us alive. Nothing more." Marcus turned, pressing his back against hers. The warmth that radiated from her was like heaven itself. Gradually, painfully, feeling returned to his extremities, burning, stabbing sensations in his fingers and toes. But he'd never been so grateful for pain. Pain meant he was still alive. "Thank you," he murmured, meaning it more than he'd ever meant anything. "Don't thank me yet. If you try anything, I'll gut you before you can blink. Yes, ma'am. You have my word. Words mean nothing out here, only actions. Hours passed. The storm raged outside with renewed fury, while the small fire crackled between them and the cave entrance. Marcus drifted in and out of awareness, his body finally beginning to recover from its brush with death. He heard the wind screaming like wounded spirits. He felt the steady rise and fall of her breathing against his back. "What's your name?" the woman asked suddenly, her voice cutting through the darkness and the sound of the storm.
"Marcus! Marcus Brennan!"
"I'm Ayana." "That's a beautiful name. It means eternal blossom in my language." There was something bitter in her tone, something wounded. Though nothing's eternal in this world, everything dies, everything ends. Marcus wanted to ask what she meant, wanted to know why an Apache woman was alone in a cave in the middle of winter, wanted to understand the sadness he heard beneath her words, but exhaustion pulled him under before he could form the questions. When he woke once during the night, he realized they'd shifted in their sleep. His arm had draped over her side, and she hadn't moved it. She hadn't stabbed him either. For reasons he couldn't explain, this simple acceptance felt more intimate than anything in his entire life. As dawn broke and grey light filtered into the cave, Marcus opened his eyes to find the storm had passed. Ayana was already awake, sitting up, watching him with those dark, unreadable eyes.
"You lived!"
she observed flatly. "Thanks to you." She stood, moving away from the bedroll with fluid grace, wrapping her blanket around her shoulders. "Don't make it mean something it doesn't. I don't let things die if I can help it, even cowboys."
But as she turned to tend the fire, Marcus caught the briefest flicker of something in her expression. Perhaps surprise, perhaps relief. Maybe she'd surprised herself as much as she'd surprised him.
Outside, the world had transformed into a pristine white wilderness, beautiful and deadly, just like the woman who'd saved his life. Marcus sat up slowly, every muscle in his body protesting. The cave felt warmer now, almost comfortable compared to the frozen hell he'd stumbled through last night. Ayana knelt by the fire, adding small pieces of dried wood with practiced precision. She moved with the kind of efficiency that spoke of years spent surviving alone. "How long have you been here?" Marcus asked, his voice still rough from the cold. "That's not your concern." She didn't look at him. "Fair enough." He rubbed his hands together, grateful for the returning circulation. "I should probably get moving. Don't want to overstay my welcome." "You'll die within an hour." Ayana gestured toward the cave entrance where brilliant sunlight streamed in.
"Fresh snow is waist deep. The temperature hasn't risen enough. Your clothes are still damp. You have no horse, no supplies, no idea where you are."
Marcus looked down at his frost-damaged coat and had to admit she was right. "So, what do you suggest?"
"Stay until you're strong enough to leave. 2, maybe 3 days." She finally turned to face him. "But we need rules." "I'm listening. You stay on that side of the cave. I stay on this side. You don't ask me questions about my past. I won't ask about yours. When the weather clears and you're healthy, you leave and forget you ever saw me." The intensity in her eyes told Marcus there was a story there, probably a dangerous one. "Agreed. Though I'd like to at least help while I'm here. I'm not much for sitting idle." Ayana studied him for a long moment, then pointed to a pile of wood near the entrance. "That needs to be brought in and stacked. The snow outside needs to be melted for water, and you'll need to check your feet for frostbite." Marcus nodded and got to work. As he moved the wood, he noticed Ayana preparing something over the fire, some kind of roots and dried meat in a small pot. The smell made his stomach growl loudly. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "When did you last eat?" Yesterday morning, maybe. Time got confused in the storm.
She ladled some of the stew into a wooden bowl and handed it to him. Eat slowly. Your body isn't ready for much.
The food was simple, but delicious, seasoned with herbs he didn't recognize. As he ate, Marcus couldn't help but observe her. She moved with purpose, never wasting motion, always alert. Like a deer in a meadow, beautiful, but ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. You speak English very well, Marcus ventured carefully. Ayana's jaw tightened. My mother worked at a trading post. She believed knowing the white man's language would help her children survive. She paused. She was wrong.
The pain in those words silenced Marcus. He returned to his stew, letting the quiet settle between them.
Hours passed. Marcus melted snow, organized the wood, and tried to stay useful. His body ached, but movement helped. Ayana worked on something in the corner, some kind of leather repair, her hands moving with practiced skill. As afternoon light shifted across the cave floor, Marcus noticed something that made his breath catch. On the wall, barely visible in the shadows, were paintings. Ancient handprints in red ochre, animals running across stone, symbols he couldn't understand. This is a sacred place, he said quietly. Ayana looked up sharply. What do you know of sacred places? My grandmother was half Cherokee. She used to tell me stories about the old ways, about places where the spirit world touched ours. Marcus moved closer to the paintings, careful not to touch them. She said these places chose who could find them. Something shifted in Ayana's expression, the wall she'd built between them developing a tiny crack. Your grandmother was wise. These paintings have been here for generations. This cave has sheltered my people during hard times for longer than anyone can remember. Is that why you're here? The hard times? Her face closed off again. I said no questions about the past. Right. Sorry. But as the sun began to set and they prepared for another night, Ayana surprised him by speaking. My tribe wanted me to marry a warrior, a strong man from a neighboring clan. It would bring alliance, strength, prosperity. Marcus waited, sensing this was important. I refused. Her voice was steady but quiet. I told them I wouldn't be traded like a horse, that I had a right to choose my own path. She laughed bitterly. They said I was selfish, that I was abandoning my duty, that I brought shame to my family. So you left. They left me no choice. Marry him or be cast out. She met Marcus's eyes. I chose freedom. Even if it means living alone in caves, running from everything I knew. Marcus understood that kind of choice more than she knew. I lost my family 5 years ago. Fever swept through our ranch. My wife, my daughter, my parents, all gone within 2 weeks. He stared into the fire. Afterward, I couldn't stay there. Too many ghosts. So I've been wandering ever since. No home, no purpose. Just moving. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of two wounded people recognizing each other's pain. We should sleep, Ayana said finally. Tomorrow I'll show you how to make medicine from pine bark. Your hands show early frostbite. You'll need it. As they settled into the bedroll again, back to back as before, Marcus felt something had changed. They were still strangers, still from different worlds. But maybe, just maybe, they understood each other a little better. Outside, stars began to appear in the clearing sky. Inside the cave, two lost souls found unexpected warmth in their shared solitude. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight they were both a little less alone. Morning light revealed a world transformed. The storm had passed completely, leaving behind a landscape of crystalline beauty. Marcus stood at the cave entrance, breathing in air so cold and clean it almost hurt. "Your horse," Ayana said from behind him. "Where did you lose it?" Marcus pointed southeast, maybe 3 miles that direction, near a dried riverbed with red rocks.
I know the place. She gathered her pack with swift movements. We'll look for it. The animal may have survived if it found shelter.
"We?" Marcus turned, surprised. "You can barely walk properly yet, and you don't know these mountains." She adjusted her coat. "Besides, a horse is valuable, worth the effort." They set out into the snow, Ayana leading the way with confident strides. She'd fashioned rough snowshoes from branches and leather strips for both of them. Marcus marveled at how quickly she'd made them, 30 minutes of work that probably saved them hours of struggle. "How did you learn all this?" he asked, gesturing at the snowshoes. "My father was a hunter, best in our tribe." For the first time, Ayana's voice held warmth instead of bitterness. "He taught me everything. How to track, how to survive, how to read the land. He said daughters could be just as capable as sons if given the chance." He sounds like a wise man. He was. He died 3 winters ago. She paused, touching a tree trunk gently. "He would have understood why I left. He always said freedom was worth any price." They walked in silence for a while, following the path Marcus had taken during the storm. Ayana stopped frequently, reading signs in the snow that Marcus couldn't even see. A broken branch here, a disturbed drift there. "You have stories in your eyes," she said suddenly. "About your family, your daughter. What was her name?" Marcus felt his throat tighten. He rarely spoke about Sarah. Her name was Sarah. She was 7. Loved horses more than anything in the world. He smiled at the memory. She'd sneak into the stables every morning before dawn, talking to them like they were her best friends. She sounds like she had a strong spirit. The strongest. She wanted to be a rancher when she grew up. Not marry a rancher, be one herself. Marcus laughed softly. "My wife used to say, Sarah got her stubbornness from me." Ayana nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps that's why you understood when I told you my story. You knew what it meant to want something different than what others expected." "Maybe so." They found Marcus's horse in a sheltered grove, standing beneath a cluster of pine trees. The animal was cold and hungry, but alive. Marcus approached slowly, speaking in low, soothing tones. "Easy, Ranger. Easy, boy. It's all right now." The horse nickered softly, pressing his head against Marcus's chest. Ayana watched the reunion with something like approval in her eyes. "You're good with animals," she observed. "Spent my whole life around them. Horses, cattle, even the wild ones." Marcus ran his hands over Ranger's legs, checking for injuries. "My father used to say animals were honest. They didn't lie or pretend. You always knew where you stood with them." "Your father was right." Ayana pulled something from her pack, dried grass she'd collected along the way. "Here, he needs food." As Ranger ate gratefully, Marcus noticed Ayana examining the horse's left rear leg with practiced hands. "He's favoring this one slightly," she said. "Not serious, but he shouldn't carry weight for a few days."
How do you know about treating horses?
Animals are animals. The principles are the same whether it's a horse or a deer. She pulled out a small pouch. "I have herbs that will help with the swelling, and I can show you how to make a proper compress." They worked together throughout the afternoon. Ayana taught Marcus about the healing properties of different plants. Willow bark for pain, sage for infection, pine sap for wounds. In return, Marcus showed her techniques for calming nervous animals, pressure points that could ease muscle tension, ways to check for hidden injuries.
Your people must have good medicine knowledge, Marcus said as they worked.
We do, but we also lost much when the white man came. Ayana's voice was careful, not accusing. Many of our healers were killed or driven away. The knowledge goes with them. I'm sorry for that, truly. She looked at him directly. You didn't do it. You don't need to apologize for things you didn't do. She paused. But you can honor what was lost by learning what remains. As the sun began to set, they started back toward the cave, leading Ranger slowly. The horse could walk, but needed rest. Ayana had fashioned a simple halter from rope, moving with such efficiency that Marcus found himself impressed again and again. You could survive anywhere, couldn't you? He asked.
I've had to learn. When you're alone, you either adapt or die. She glanced at him. But you know that too. You've been wandering for 5 years. That takes its own kind of strength.
Or cowardice. Sometimes I think I'm just running from grief instead of facing it. Maybe running is facing it. Maybe moving forward is the only way to honor what you lost. Ayana's voice was gentle. Your daughter wouldn't want you to stop living because she couldn't continue. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Not because they were cruel, but because they were true. For 5 years, he'd been existing, not living, moving, but not growing, breathing, but not truly alive. Thank you, he said quietly. For what?
For saying what I needed to hear.
That night, as they settled by the fire with Ranger resting comfortably nearby, something had shifted between them. They were no longer just two strangers sharing shelter. They were becoming something else. Allies, perhaps. Maybe even friends. Ayana began to hum softly as she worked on repairing Marcus's damaged coat. The melody was haunting and beautiful, rising and falling like wind through canyon walls. That's lovely, Marcus said. What is it? A song my mother used to sing, about two rivers that flow from different mountains but meet in the valley, becoming stronger together than they ever were apart. Marcus understood the metaphor. Two different worlds, two different paths, converging in unexpected ways. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead in their ancient dance. Inside the cave, two lost souls were slowly finding their way back to something resembling hope. Marcus woke to Ayana's hand covering his mouth. Her eyes were urgent in the pre-dawn darkness, her finger pressed to her lips in a gesture of silence. He nodded understanding, and she slowly removed her hand. Someone's coming, she breathed, barely audible. From the east, following my trail. Marcus's heart hammered as he sat up carefully, reaching for his boots. Outside, Ranger stirred nervously, sensing the tension. Ayana was already moving, gathering their supplies with practiced silence. How many? Marcus whispered. 3, maybe 4. They've been tracking me for days. Her face was calm, but her hands moved with urgency. My tribe. They won't let me go so easily.
What will they do if they find you?
Take me back. Force the marriage. She met his eyes. Or worse, make an example of me for the others who might think to defy tradition.
Marcus felt anger rise in his chest. We won't let that happen. We? Ayana paused, studying him. This isn't your fight, Cowboy. You owe me nothing. In fact, you should stay here. Tell them you never saw me. They'll leave you alone. You saved my life. I'm not abandoning you now. Marcus stood, testing Ranger's leg gently. The swelling had gone down significantly thanks to Ayana's medicine. Besides, I've been running from everything for 5 years. Maybe it's time I stand for something. Something flickered across Ayana's face. Gratitude, perhaps, or surprise. She gave a single nod. Then we leave now, before they reach the cave. They moved swiftly through the darkness, leading Ranger carefully through the snow. Ayana navigated by starlight and instinct, taking them west into rougher terrain where tracking would be harder. The cold bit at Marcus's face, but he ignored it, focused on keeping pace. As dawn broke, they paused on a ridge overlooking a vast valley. Behind them, Marcus could see distant figures emerging from the tree line near the cave. 4 riders, moving with purpose. "They're good trackers," Ayana said quietly. "The best in our tribe. They'll find our trail within the hour." "Then we need to be smarter, not just faster." Marcus studied the landscape. "Is there water nearby? A stream or river?" "Yes, a creek runs through that canyon." She pointed north. "Why?" "Water hides tracks. If we follow it for a few miles, then exit on rocky ground, we might lose them." Marcus looked at her. "It's an old trick my father taught me. Used it once when some rustlers were after our herd." Ayana's eyes brightened with understanding. "It could work, but the water will be freezing. We'll need to move fast afterward to avoid getting sick." Better than the alternative. They descended into the canyon, finding the creek exactly where Ayana had indicated. The water was ice cold, flowing fast over smooth stones. They led Ranger into the current, moving upstream for nearly 2 miles before emerging onto a broad expanse of wind-swept rock. "No tracks on stone," Marcus said, his feet numb from the frigid water. "And the wind will cover any trace of moisture." "You're smarter than you look, Cowboy," Ayana said, and Marcus caught the hint of a smile. "Don't spread that around. I've got a reputation for being simple-minded to maintain."
This time she actually laughed. A brief, genuine sound that transformed her entire face. Marcus realized it was the first time he'd heard her truly laugh.
They pressed on throughout the day, putting miles between themselves and their pursuers. Ayana led them through terrain that seemed impossible to navigate. Narrow passes between towering rocks, hidden trails known only to those who'd grown up in these mountains. Several times, Marcus would have sworn they'd reached a dead end, only to have Ayana find a path forward. As afternoon shadows lengthened, they stopped to rest in a sheltered hollow. Marcus built a small, smokeless fire, while Ayana kept watch. Ranger grazed on the sparse grass poking through the snow. "You know these mountains like they're part of you," Marcus observed, warming his hands. "They are part of me. Every canyon, every peak. They're in my blood." Ayana's gaze was distant. "My people have lived here for more generations than anyone can count. We know every secret these stones hold." "It must be hard, leaving all that behind." "Harder than I expected." Her voice was soft. "I thought I was strong enough to walk away and never look back. But the land pulls at you. It calls you home, even when home doesn't want you anymore." Marcus understood that longing more than he cared to admit. "After Sarah died, I sold the ranch. Thought getting rid of it would make the memories stop haunting me. But you can't outrun ghosts. They follow you wherever you go." "So what do you do? How do you make peace with it?" "I don't know yet. I'm still figuring that out." Marcus poked at the fire. "But maybe running isn't the answer. Maybe we have to find a new place to belong. Build something new instead of trying to recreate what we lost." Ayana was quiet for a long moment. "Is that what you're doing? Looking for a new place to belong?" "I think maybe I am. I just didn't realize it until recently." As darkness fell, they took turns keeping watch. During Marcus's shift, he noticed something that made his pulse quicken. Distant firelight, perhaps 3 miles back. Their pursuers hadn't given up. When Ayana woke to relieve him, he showed her the light. "They're persistent," she said, her jaw tight. "We can't keep running forever. Eventually, we'll make a mistake, or they'll get lucky." "Then what do you suggest?" Ayana stared at the distant fire, thinking. There's a place, 2 days' ride from here. A valley where white settlers have built a small community, trading post, families, livestock. My people won't follow me there. The risk of conflict with settlers is too high. You'd go to a white settlement? After everything? After everything, I've learned that survival matters more than pride. She met his gaze. Besides, I won't be alone. I'll have a friend with me. The word friend hung in the air between them, carrying more weight than Marcus expected. In less than a week, this woman had gone from a dangerous stranger to someone he'd risk everything to protect. Then that's where we'll go, Marcus said firmly. Together. They moved out before dawn, pushing hard through difficult terrain. The pursuers stayed on their trail, never gaining but never falling back either. It became a race against time and endurance. On the second day, as they crested a final ridge, Marcus saw smoke rising from chimneys in the valley below. The settlement. Safety. A chance to start over. But Ayana had stopped, staring back the way they'd come with an expression Marcus couldn't read. What is it? He asked. I was just thinking, she said slowly, about what you said, about building something new instead of recreating what was lost. She turned to him. What if we did that? Really did it? What do you mean? I mean, what if we didn't just run to that settlement and hide? What if we made something of our own? Something that belongs to both our worlds. Marcus felt something stir in his chest. Hope, perhaps, or possibility. I'd like that. I'd like that very much. As they descended toward the valley, neither of them noticed that the distant pursuers had stopped at the ridge, watching. After a long moment, the four riders turned and headed back into the mountains, leaving Ayana to her chosen path. Some journeys, even the hardest ones, had to be made alone, or in this case, with someone who'd chosen to walk beside her. The settlement appeared quiet as they approached. A dozen wooden buildings clustered around a central trading post, smoke rising from stone chimneys. People moved between structures, going about their daily tasks. A few looked up curiously at the approaching travelers, a cowboy leading a horse, with an Apache woman walking beside him. Marcus felt Ayana tense slightly. We don't have to do this, he said quietly. We can find somewhere else. No, this is right. She straightened her shoulders. Besides, I'm tired of running. They found lodging at a simple boarding house run by a widow named Mrs. Patterson, a sturdy woman with kind eyes who asked no uncomfortable questions. She showed them to separate rooms without comment, though Marcus caught her curious glances. That first week passed in a blur of adjustment. Marcus found work helping at the stables, his knowledge of horses making him valuable. Ayana was more cautious, staying close to their lodgings at first. But gradually, people began to seek her out. A child with a fever, a man with an infected wound. Word spread quietly that the Apache woman had healing knowledge. They're starting to accept you, Marcus said one evening as they shared dinner at the boarding house. Accept is a strong word. Tolerate, maybe. Use, definitely. But Ayana's tone wasn't bitter. It's a start. More than a start. You're helping people, making a difference. She looked at him across the table. We're making a difference. You think I don't notice how you talk to the suspicious ones? How you vouch for me without making it obvious? You're building a bridge, Marcus, between their world and mine. Our worlds, he corrected gently. Not mine and yours. Ours. Something shifted in her expression. A softening, a warmth he'd rarely seen. Yes, ours. The weeks turned into a month. Spring began to touch the valley, melting snow revealing green underneath. Marcus and Ayana fell into a rhythm, working during the day, talking long into the evenings.
They shared meals, shared stories, shared the comfortable silence of two people who understood each other.
One morning, Marcus woke before dawn with an idea burning in his mind. He'd been thinking about it for days, turning it over, examining it from every angle. Now he knew what he had to do. He found Ayana tending to Mrs. Patterson's small garden, teaching the older woman about medicinal herbs.
I need to be gone for a few days, he said. There's something I need to take care of.
Ayana's face showed concern. Is everything all right?
Everything's fine. Better than fine. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that?
She studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. I trust you, Marcus. Be careful. He left that afternoon, riding Ranger north. What he was planning would take time, effort, and every skill his father had taught him. But it would be worth it. 3 weeks later, Marcus returned. He found Ayana at the trading post, bartering her herbs for supplies. Her face lit up when she saw him, then quickly composed itself. You were gone longer than a few days, she said, but he could hear the relief in her voice. What I was doing took longer than I expected. Come with me. I have something to show you. Marcus, what? Please, just trust me. They rode together for an hour, following a path that led to a secluded section of the valley. As they rounded a bend, Ayana gasped. There, nestled against a hillside with a clear stream running nearby, stood a small house. But it wasn't like the other buildings in the settlement. The structure blended two styles seamlessly. The log construction of frontier cabins combined with the organic lines and positioning of traditional Apache dwellings. The roof sloped gently, designed to shed rain, but also to honor the earth. Windows faced east for the morning sun, a practice from Ayana's people. But what made Ayana's breath catch was the carving above the door. Marcus had spent days on it, working with wood that had spoken to him. On one side, a horse ran free across plains. On the other, an eagle soared over mountains. And in the center, where the two images met, they intertwined, not competing, but complementing. Two spirits, two worlds, becoming one. Marcus! Her voice broke. What is this? It's ours, if you want it. He dismounted, suddenly nervous. I know we haven't talked about... I don't want to assume. But these past months, working beside you, learning from you, I felt more alive than I have in years. You're not just a friend, Ayana. You're... Home, she whispered, sliding down from her horse. You're home. She walked to the house slowly, touching the walls with trembling fingers. Marcus had built it with his own hands, every board placed with care, every corner checked and rechecked. Inside, he'd created an open space that could be divided however they wished. A stone fireplace dominated one wall. Windows let in generous light. The furniture was simple but sturdy. A table, chairs, a bed frame waiting for a mattress. But what made Ayana's eyes fill with tears was the small shelf he'd built into the eastern wall. It was positioned perfectly to hold sacred items, to honor the spirits, to maintain the traditions she'd thought she'd lost forever. How did you know? She asked. Your mother's teachings, the things you've shared about your beliefs. I listened, Ayana, to everything you said and everything you didn't say. Marcus came to stand beside her. This isn't your world or my world. It's our world. A place where neither of us has to give up who we are. Where we can build something new together. Ayana turned to him, tears streaming down her face. I've been alone so long. Running, hiding, thinking I'd never belong anywhere again. And then you... She couldn't finish.
And then I stumbled into your cave, half frozen and completely lost, Marcus said softly. Best thing that ever happened to me.
You saved my life that night, Ayana said. Not from the cold, from loneliness, from believing I had to face everything alone.
We saved each other. She took his hands in hers.
Yes, we did.
They stood together in the doorway of their new home, watching the sun set over the valley. Behind them lay their pasts: grief, loss, rejection, pain. Before them stretched possibility. It's not much, Marcus said, but it's ours. We can add to it, change it, make it whatever we need it to be. It's perfect, Ayana said firmly. It's absolutely perfect. That night, they sat by their own fire in their own home, no longer running, no longer hiding. Two people from different worlds who'd found something neither expected: belonging, purpose, and perhaps, just perhaps, love. Outside, stars wheeled overhead, ancient and eternal. Inside, two hearts beat in rhythm, creating something new. Something that honored the past while embracing the future. They'd started as strangers in a storm. They'd become something far more precious. Partners in building a life that belonged to neither world alone, but to both together. And that, Marcus thought as Ayana's hand found his across the table, was worth every moment of cold, every mile of running, every fear they'd faced. They were home, finally, truly home.